the Battle of Ontario, and it wasn't much of a battle as Ottawa, they looked like a team that was getting its first taste, didn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when you haven't played in the playoffs, but you've been in the league for a while, which a lot of Ottawa top players have, right? Like Shabbat and Batherson, Kachuk, Stutzla, and you hear over and over how different it is, how physical it is, how intense it is. You almost feel like you need to prove that we're capable of playing that, what you perceive to be different style of hockey. And it felt like Ottawa got themselves a little bit out of sorts trying to prove with good intentions that they can be this physical, intense team. I think next game, if they just play, you play hard, but just play the way you normally do, it'll be a truer test of what that series will look like.
Well, do you think the 6-2 was truly indicative of the style of the game?
Well, special teams are part of the game, right, John? So, like, not 5-on-5, no, right? Like 5-on-5, it was pretty even. Ottawa would tell you that they had more chances, more expected goals, more zone time. All true. Some of that is score effects coming into play as they were trailing and chasing. But power play is part of the game. The Leafs will tell you they got one power play goal last year, the entire series. It cost them the series. Yeah. So they got 3 in game 1.
No, that's part of the game. Mike, they got 3 in 20 seconds. They got 3 in 20 seconds.
We don't worry about zone entries. We just take the puck off a faceoff and take it. That's like little kid hockey. You win a faceoff, you go to the net. It's like immediately, yes, 3 in 20. High efficiency. Mark Savard would appreciate that, the power play coach in Toronto. But, I think the other part of the story is that the goalie for Toronto was better than the goalie for Ottawa by a considerable margin. And if that's the case in any series, let alone that one, then the team with the better goalie is generally going to win.
You talked about the exhale. Does that mean your expectations of that Toronto team are that much higher than years past? Not just to win a round, but to go deeper?
Yeah.
Or is it just the opponent and Ottawa and the rivalry?
Well, I think the exhale last night was that I think Toronto fans are so scared that it's going to go poorly, because it generally has, that they prepare for the worst. And so when it doesn't, they feel good. But I think Toronto is well positioned to go deeper, not just a round. And it's funny to say this for a team that's had so much failure, but they're well positioned to go deep, to the finals deep, in that they've never had first in the division, other than that Canadian division year, which was a strange one. So they don't play maybe the toughest teams in the first round. I think that's fair to say. Then I think the Metro division is not as strong this year. It's probably the weakest division in the league. So if you get to the conference final, you're not playing, Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, Vegas would probably all be the favorite in the Eastern Conference. Mm-hmm. They're not in that conference. They're in the softer conference. They have a great track record and home ice against Tampa. If they get there in the second round, Florida, you don't know. So yes, you're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but I think Toronto should feel bullish about their opportunities. Now, they could easily lose the first round, but they could also easily get to the cup final. Not easily, but they could also get to the cup final.
Oh, you beat me to it, because the Leaf fans are happy until game 2. Mm-hmm. Because you do know that Ottawa is going to play better in the second game. They're going to adjust. There was tons of talk. I didn't really understand it much, but maybe you can explain it. Tons of talk that maybe the Senators were better 5-on-5. I don't necessarily buy that. But Travis Green understands what it's going to take. You've done enough Senators games, enough Leaf games to know both of these coaches well enough that the adjustments for game 2 are going to happen on both sides, right?
100%. And now I think Ottawa would cling to the fact that they weren't. It was an even game at 5-on-5. I don't think Ottawa was dominant, but it was pretty even. And I think that's how they want to play this series. They're not significantly worse than the Toronto Maple Leafs. Game 2 will tell you everything. If Toronto wins again and their best players score again, and they score more than 2 goals, which, again, they haven't done, right? 13 of the last 14 games prior to last night, 2 or fewer in the playoffs. If they score again and go up 2-0, it will feel really different. And Toronto will really feel comfortable and confident in that series. If they lose, whatever the game looks like, all that scar tissue. Part of the dynamic of this series was that Ottawa's going to try to apply pressure internally or externally on the Leafs by extending it, casting doubt, bringing up the past failures. And if they can win game 2, all that will be true, because Toronto also has generally not been very good at home in the playoffs. And they looked pretty good last night. So, yeah, we'll know way more after game 2. I think Ottawa will just be more comfortable going into that game, given that they've been through one now. And we'll see a truer test of what this series will look like.
I mentioned on the podcast before that I've talked to players who have gone through Toronto and this year and said they're a different team than years past. They just play harder. There's different style. And those 2 power play goals right in front of the net, like that, that gives a Maple Leaf fan confidence that you can score without the breakaways, which they also did. But there's a grindier, greasier component to their game.
Yeah, so I think, he's not the most important player, but Matthew Knies and what he has become has been a really significant growth and change in the Toronto Maple Leafs, in that he's not better than those other guys, but he's different than those other big forwards. He plays a different style. He's physically more imposing in what he does well. And when they went to that 5-forward power play unit, it was either him or Riley. That was basically the guy that was coming in. If Morgan Riley would come in and Knies would go off, or Knies would go in and Riley would come off. And they stuck with it. And he's made a difference. He does things that those other guys don't do. He goes to the front of that and he can score goals. Darren, watching Vegas, they score a ton of goals banging around the front of that because they're bigger and stronger. Matthew Knies is bigger and stronger than just about anybody in the league. He's a monster there. So, yeah, that is different. He is a bit of a wild card difference maker this year that wasn't maybe there last year. So, and then listen, they defend stoutly. They play on their own end more this year than years past. Toronto does, but they defend the front of their net stoutly. And I think Carlo has come in and made Morgan Riley much better. I think you put Jake McCabe with Chris Tanev, and they are really good defensive pairing. And then your third pair is big guys who've been there before, and Ekman Larson and an energetic Benoit. So they make it tougher to get to the front of the net, which might be different than years past.